Zombies, trading in the Mediterranean, H.P. Lovecraft. What do these all have in common? Well, they're incredibly popular themes when it comes to board games. Today's game looks at one of those criteria, and that is a game that is set in the Miskatonic universe, that is Elder Sign. If you saw my previous video on Bravest Warriors, you would know that this was coming. This is a cooperative dice game from Fantasy Flight. I'm John the Board Game Chap. Let's have a look. So, in Elder Sign, you and a bunch of friends are going to be playing a group of investigators doing investigative things at the Miskatonic University Museum, where there is a wide world of weirdness going on. It's a university that has a pretty lackluster budget when it comes to its security, and is probably the inspiration as to why employers have to do background checks on its employees. But essentially the objective of the game is for you and your team to roll some dice at these encounters, trying to complete them, and in order to get enough of these little elder signs that you're going to need to lock a gateway to another dimension, because you're trying to close off portals, preventing unfathomable evil from entering our world and essentially turning humanity into blubber. At least for another week before another bunch of lunatics try it again. As you set up the game, each player is going to draw a character card, each with their own unique ability and starting set of items. You might end up being the sexy Sister Mary the nun, or how about the sexy magician Dexter Drake, or even the epitome of sexiness, the Professor. The Professor Harvey Walters. Oh, Professor Walters. You're also going to be drawing a monster from the Ancient One deck. This is going to be the big baddie that you're going to be trying to prevent from taking over all of humanity. These themselves are also all remarkably quite sexy. But anyway, you've got these sexy dice as well, you've got sexy encounters that you have to get past, sexy items, lots of sexy cards, sexy tokens and things. You also get this rather sexy clock, don't you think it's sexy? Which is going to keep track of the turns, and as time draws by, you're going to get closer and closer to your inevitably sexy demise. Tick-tock. So on your turn, you're going to go gallivanting off into one of the exhibits alone, because you possess the virtues of bravery and stupidity. On the encounter, there's going to be a bunch of these symbols that you're going to need in order to pass the mission. If you succeed, you're going to get rewarded. If you fail, you're going to get punished. Simple as that. You take the dice and you roll them. You want to get the symbols to match up with what is on the picture. Now, you're only allowed to allocate dice one row at a time. So I might pass some dice here, but that's all I can do. I can't do any other rows. But if I succeed a row, I take the dice and I roll again, trying to succeed in any other parts. If, though, I fail, I cannot assign all the dice to a particular row, then I lose a die, and then I get to roll again. And you just keep going until either you allocate the dice that you need to complete the task, or you just run out of dice knowing that you cannot succeed in the mission. But don't despair though, as there are fortunes that you can twist into your favour, like spending a clue token to re-roll as many dice as you wish, or you might spend items that allow you to roll the stronger yellow or red die, Or you can even take an action called focusing. Focusing is kind of locking a die away in reserve after you have failed a roll. Let's take a look at a little example. Here I need 2 more scrolls to complete the mission. On my roll I only get 1 of them, so what I can do is that I lock it in place, I remove a die for failing the mission, and now all I need left is to roll 1 more scroll rather than having to roll 2 at once. Focusing isn't as strong as, say, spending your clue tokens or item cards, but they just might help you out when you're in a little bit of a pinch. Now, if you succeed a mission, then happy days, you're going to reap the benefits. You might gain some more clues or item cards. You might get access to the portal deck, which is going to let you stumble upon more bizarre experiences here. Or you might get the most invaluable commodity of all, and those are the Elder Signs. Elder Signs are what you need in order to win the game, to close that gateway. I hold Ithaqua here. He says that you need 11 Elder Signs in order to defeat him. Once you've done your turn, you advance the clock 3 hours, and play passes on to the next person. But Professor, we're in class. I can't do that. I can't run my fingers through your mutton chops as much as I'd like to right now. Did I say not to despair? I did say, but actually you should despair. There is a lot to despair about this. The designers have made lots of ways to make your life difficult. Let's start with some of the encounters. So this first one over here has got an arrow pointing down. This means that you have got to complete this task in that specific order. You have to do the top row before you can do the next row and then the next row. Then we move on. This one's got some terror text on it. You roll the dice. If you fail the roll, but you happen to have any of these little terror symbols left over, then you have to do what the text says. Normally it means losing some health or some sanity, or having to just fail the adventure automatically or discard dice, some sort of punishment. Then you've got some at midnight text, which means that if any cards on the table have the at midnight text and the clock strikes 12, you have got to deal with that punishment. You have to adhere to it. Then we move over here, and this has got a green lock on it, which means you take one of your die and you actually remove it. You cannot use it, so you've got a smaller dice pool. Why? Because that's why. Then we go over to the Doom track and we add these Doom tokens on, and whenever you get to a certain symbol, then you've got to add some monsters to the table, and then you add those to the encounter, making them that much harder to beat. And then you've got these mythos tales that you flip over every time the clock strikes midnight, and they've got an immediate and a lingering effect, and they're normally punishing. Sometimes they're good, but they're punishing. And then over here, what else? You've got bloody monsters here coming out more times. I've forgotten where I'm going. Where's the last thing I was going to say? Oh, piss. I've remembered the last thing that I was going to say now, and that is, even if you complete a task, you can be punished for it as well. You might complete parts of a mission and you lose stamina or sanity, or even decide, like, yeah, you get some rewards, but actually, you know what? Add another Doom token to the track, or add more monsters to the mix. Just have it. It's like you're in an argument with somebody and you know you're winning, so all they can do to come back is just call you a poopy head or just stab you. It's brutal. If at any time you lose all of your health or your sanity, you are devoured and your character is eliminated from the game. They die. But fear not the folly of player elimination. You yourself aren't eliminated. You simply draw a new character and come back as them. So you're kind of like that person who always says that they're running on time, but you know that they're always going to be late. Why? Why isn't he here? Oh, please don't let me die in a waistcoat. Guess who just went on a date with a librarian to avoid paying a late penalty fee? Yeah. Where's Leopold? Oh. Anyway, you carry on until you've unlocked enough Elder Signs to seal the gateway, or the Doom track gets filled up. If that happens, you've basically let the Ancient One in, and you have one last chance at victory, where you'll face the Ancient One in hand-to-hand combat. But it's a little bit like peeing into the wind. It usually doesn't end well. Dice games need to have a strong element of decision making to them, because if that element is completely devoid in a game like this, then all you're really doing is playing a complicated predestined version of Candyland. Fortunately, Elder Sign has an abundance of decision making. You can decide which encounter you want to go on. You can try risking it, going for a tougher challenge in the hopes of getting more Elder Signs. As you get nearer towards the end of the game, if you realise that you're getting closer and closer to letting loose the Ancient One, and you have no way of getting enough Elder Signs, you can stock up on other items to try and give yourself a little fighting chance at taking them on in hand-to-hand combat. As well, you don't even really have to go on encounters. You see, if you win adventures or defeat monsters, you start earning trophies, and trophies act as a kind of currency, which, you guessed it, at a museum you can spend in the gift shop. Only in this gift shop you can't get pens and postcards. Instead, you can try and get some first aid, you can trade your trophies in for Elder Signs, or what I imagine you can get in pretty much any gift shop in the US. You can buy guns and sticks of dynamite and even some topless men. Hopla! Hopla! Now, this game is oozing with autonomy. You've got so much decision making, you're spoilt for choice, but the problem with lots of decision making is that there's a big steaming pile of regret. And it's not regret to do with the game's fault, it's just the regret that you're going to be feeling when you have all those failed dice rolls, or you're going to have encounters where you'll spend an axe so you can get the extra yellow die, but you roll the green dice perfectly. So it was a bit of a waste. You didn't actually need to use up that item. You could have saved it for later. Or you'll have the extra die in the dice pool and it was useless to begin with. It never actually helped you. You were just doomed to fail from the start. Or you just go through the 7 stages of grief just trying to roll that one little skull on that die that you need to complete the task. What? How many rolls and still no skull? What's the probability? You're taking the... I'll spend a clue token for a re-roll. Give me that skull, yeah? Ah! One more clue. It's all I've got left. Please, please. Ah! Sorry, it's my fault. I've rolled badly. I'm sorry. You're adopted! No one will love you! How about 20 quid? If we gave you 20 quid just for a skull, please. Please! And then you'll come to terms with it, and at the end of many a turn, you'll simply say, I shouldn't have done that. The problem with dice is that they are rather unpredictable fellows, and the thing about this game is that the onus is really based solely around one key mechanic, and that is around the dice. If you roll well, you're going to have an easy time. If you roll poorly, then you're going to be heading up that brown creek without a paddle. Now, it's not necessarily a criticism, but for me there seems to be too much emphasis, too much power that the dice possess, rather than trying to put more of that control to the players. I mean, yes, if you roll well, it's going to put you in good stead later on in the game if you roll badly, because you're going to have all your items and things to help you out. However, there's always going to be one unfortunate soul who consistently rolls terribly, and they're going to feel bad as well, through no fault of their own other than the results of what the dice say. They're just continually going to be at fault. They never succeed an encounter, and they just seem to make things worse, and it's difficult not to feel guilty as that person. It feels like there's a bunch of superheroes gone there to save the end of the world, to stop that from happening, except for some reason they brought the work experience kid along, and that person is just making more of a mess. So not only do the heroes have to defeat evil, they also have to clean up all the messes that the kid is making. The theme, I find, works really well. I mean, yes, it's Lovecraft and old Tagliatelle face make an awful lot of appearances in board games these days, but on the whole, the theme functions well. I mean, who doesn't want to play as a bunch of plucky investigators up against ridiculous odds? All the encounters themselves have nice little bits of flavour text on them, helping you just immerse yourself in the narrative that little bit more. You get little bits of giddy excitement when you pass a test and you wonder what rewards you're going to get. It's essentially a Victorian Edwardian Scooby-Doo on steroids, and I find that the theme is just very, very close to reality, because often when I go on investigations, things are so much better when I've got a Tommy gun. I just find that firing bullets rapidly make things just better. The rulebook is made up of 20 pages, which is quite a considerable amount considering the size of this game, but it's filled with lots of examples that really explain the game very well. You're going to need the rulebook on hand after your first 2 or 3 game throughs, just because you're going to have to keep referring back to little bits and bobs, and it's a little bit frustrating that they don't include a contents page for that easy to find referencing. However, stick with it though, because after that 3rd playthrough you're pretty much not going to need it, and once you know it, it's really quite an easy game to teach to others. One issue as well is the player count. This box says that you can play between 1 and 8. Anything more than 4 I think is pretty ridiculous, because by the time you've had your turn you can potter off, go and make a lasagna and be back in time for your turn. Secondly as well, playing solo is an okay experience. It's quite fun, but it is better playing with others. You want that shared experience. You can go through a roller coaster in the narrative. You have your highs and lows, and it's just that much better when you have it shared with your friends, and it just gets a bit too muted when you're on your own. A particular gripe I have with board games is when all of the contents of the base game don't actually fit inside the insert provided. I've played games like Ubongo and Tetris where you have to manipulate pieces around in order to fit the puzzle. No matter how hard I try with this, packing all of the contents away, it just doesn't fit snugly. However, I kind of forgive it for this game, because thematically it's like there's so much evil contained within it that the evil could just spring out and burst at the seams at a moment's notice. Now, the game isn't perfect, not by a long stretch. However, if the theme appeals to you and you like rolling dice, then this is certainly going to be an entertaining one at that. Well worth a little look. That is Elder Sign. Thanks very much for watching, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please don't hesitate by hitting that little subscribe button down there. It helps me out a lot. Also, you can reach me at my Facebook and Instagram pages. What are your favourite games set in the H.P. Lovecraft mythos? I would love to hear from you. Anyway, I gotta go. I got a hot date with a librarian because callback. Bye.